the question is, do we have corona in Syria? The government says no. Everyone is in doubt. And we need to really know if there is how's the situation in Syria. Currently, the official numbers are 19 infected and 2 died. Not everyone believes this, but we need to really know. Is this a baby slope for Syria? They started and finished on their own, or this is the tip of the iceberg? I believe that this actually the big question for the rest of the Middle East, because if you look into the numbers, with the exception of Israel and Turkey and Iran, they are extremely small. What does it mean? That is a big question for us. You have different arguments about the numbers. It is not about the government under-reporting, but also the real situation. We do not have enough indicators that it is really bad in Syria or in these other places. I will tell you why now. It might be bad later, but not now. So we need to really be careful about our assessment. People say it is younger population, but after the 2011 and 12, many young population left the country. So is this still the case? They will tell you they have a stronger immunity due to the hardships, but also we're still not so sure about that. Look into the surrounding Turkey. No one says that the Turks are having like less immunity or whatever, but they are being hit so far. How to know the situation not only in Syria but also in Lebanon and or Yemen, where we have no information, or in Libya. Basically, if you look into the numbers, we have normally, if you have 100% infected, 80% can stay at home, 20% needs normally to go to the hospital, and 2% will die, unfortunately. So if the situation is really bad, you can see crowded hospitals in these capitals that they have under-reporting. That's not the case so far. And not everywhere in Syria is hard to report on. For example, Idlib. We hardly having few cases now, and I do believe that we should know if the situation in Idlib is bad or not. The question is, will Corona come or not? And if it will come, will it come at the sudden, with the like a radical increase of the slope, or it will come gradually? Why this is important? Because basically to assess how the situation will be bad and whether someone will be able to help them or not. Let me give you an example. If we have Corona now, no one really will be ready for them. If the peak in Syria, especially in Idlib on the north, will come in 2 months, then maybe the peak of Turkey will pass, and then the Turks will be able to help the Syrians. So I'm looking into the management of the situation. The other question, or the other issue also to look into, is basically what is the impact of Corona itself. Means people getting infected or whatever, and the impact of the current situation, the current lockdown. That is very important distinction, because if the current lockdown is affecting people already, and if in the coming weeks they are getting infected by the virus, then the situation will really be worse, and then that will take us sometime, maybe till the end of the year, to fix it, and it will have really serious implications. But anyway, so let me quickly look into the humanitarian, economic, military, and political impact. We really do not know what will happen, since we do not have enough cases or enough indicators of the situation. But hopefully it will not be hard. However, we really cannot predict. But if the situation is bad, it is really hard to help people now if it comes now. It's a place like Idlib, for example, no one will go help them. They have no one to help. I do not also expect humanitarian support from outside. The Turks are busy with themselves. International organizations are also confused what to do in such situations. So yeah, it will not be really good. So the only hope for us is that Corona will hit them a little bit later, so we will have some time to work with them. Basic supply shortages will of course hit hard in the regime areas if the agriculture, which is basically maybe one of the remaining like areas of productivity for the economy, is hit hard. They will really have a hard time, given the fact that every border is closed, and the production capacity in general is extremely tarnished after 10 or so years of conflict. The reliance on Iran and Russia will not really help. But also we should be able to see how the situation will develop. The same for Idlib. We hope if Corona will hit, it will hit only after some time, maybe after the Iranians and the Russians will have some space of mind and maybe some spare of money to share with the Syrians. I mean the Syrian people here. It will not be easy at all. We do not need to talk about how the international economic situation will affect the Syrians, because they are cut off all of the system for quite some time. Sanctions and the international isolation will not allow them even to have access to IMF loans or whatever mechanisms that we are still pondering how that actually will work. I want to quickly jump into the economic situation. 83% of the population are already poor. So you can imagine how it will be really affecting them if we stay a little bit longer than this. That most probably will also affect the dynamics within the government itself. It will affect the relationship between the government and the population. It remains to be seen how the government will react, given the intensity of the cases. We really do not know. We cannot predict. For example, if you have a bad situation in Latakia and Damascus, it will be different from Homs and Aleppo, for example. We need to see how the government will allow civil society to help in such a situation that is related to human rights and opening up the space for the society to contribute in the efforts to contain the virus impact. Militarily speaking, this is good news, because basically everyone is distracted now by the virus. By the virus actually measures, not by the virus itself, because we have no proof that the virus hit any of the forces. The Russians and the Americans and the Turks are in a force protection mode. So everyone in his own bases and trying to limit the contact with the civilians. But again, we really don't know if the situation will be bad with the civilians. It's very hard to isolate yourself. So we will see how that can play out. The Turks can go home quickly and come back. So really not big change. The Russians can isolate themselves in their bases. The Americans might need to leave if the situation is really bad. For the future, it will be worse more for the militias, either on the Turkish side in Idlib or the other areas, or even for ISIS. If there will be any good news and out of all of this, that ISIS will also be hardly affected. In terms of the foot soldiers and the leadership. The leadership will not be able to really communicate due to the limitation of movement, and the foot soldiers are already mixing with the population. So if the population is affected, they will also be affected with less accessibility to hospitals and healthcare, because you do not expect an ISIS member to run to the hospital to get cured. So that applies to others as well in Idlib, or even in other places in Iraq. So if it will be a good news, it will be this one.